Sairam, you're listening to Sai SOUL 100, a weekly podcast series with soul, or stories of unconditional love, shared by devotees of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba in celebration of his 100th birthday. We invite you to listen in on these motivational stories of his constant loving presence in devotees' lives, offered at his lotus feet by the Sri Satya Sai International Organization USA Mid-Atlantic region. Welcome to Sai SOUL 100.
Sairam, dear listeners, welcome to Sai SOUL 100. Our guest today is Susan Sullivan, who is joining us from Richmond, Virginia. She'll be sharing a story which resulted in her developing surrender, trust, acceptance of Swami's will. Sairam, Susan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Please share your story.
Okay. This is a story about one of my three sons, my youngest one. In 2010, he went to the Mid-Atlantic retreat, and while he was there, he had a very enlightening experience in Swami's room. He spent quite a bit of time there. That put him into bliss for a week. And when he came out of that, he had this urge. He said, "I've got to get to India. When are you going again?" I said, "Well, we're going in January of 2011. And if you want to come, then save your money and you can stay. You can stay as long as you want." So he did. He actually stayed for almost 6 months, and we were there about a month. And he spent his time working as a cook in the Western canteen at night and meditating on Shiva. That's where it was his time. And he'd spend his time meditating with Shiva in the apartment that he had and going to darshan. And what would happen at darshan was that men would give him letters because he'd be up in the front, and Swami would come by in his wheelchair and accept all the letters and then give him a very focused Shiva look. So which would put him back into bliss. So he was very happy. And he was there for 6 months, came home. He still had his job, and he went back to work. He got rid of all of his party friends, and he just went into really isolation. He would go to the gym every day. After work, he'd work out, and then come home, eat, and meditate. And those three things were what he did every day. That was from June of 2010. 2011 until June of 2012. That's one thing that I found so interesting while he was there. It was right after Swami had left his body. He was now lying in state in Psychwald Hall, and I called him because he had a phone, and I said, "Have you seen Swami yet?" And he said, "Mom, you shouldn't want to see Swami. He's in every person you know and love." I was so happy with that response because it's actually quite true. But the fact that he got that, so anyway, his mother was very happy with that response. So he didn't want to go to the Mid-Atlantic retreat the following year. We went, and when we got home, I called him and he wasn't answering his phone, so I had his brother go over and look. And he had moved into his apartment about a month before, and I had seen it, and it was all nice and tidy. But when his brother went, everything was packed up. The bed was unmade, and he left a credit card, his bank card, and other things that you wouldn't typically leave if you were going on a trip. And he just vanished. So his brother and I talked it over, and he filed a missing persons report. So for a week, I just sat in front of Swami's picture and meditated and held Swami close, or because his mother was a typical worry about everything about your children, even though he was 24 at the time. And then one day, the police called his brother because that's who filed the report. And they were in the police in Sedona, Arizona, called because his car was abandoned there. Well, he had told me that previous summer, that he thought he would like to go out west and experience the vortexes. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, take a vacation and go there. That would be a good thing for you to do. So the fact that the car had been abandoned for a week and it didn't look like he had taken anything from inside the car as far as the police could tell. I shipped a set of keys so that they could open the car, which they got the following day. And his computer was in the trunk. I mean, it's just like he left everything. His sunglasses in Arizona, you leave your sunglasses. Something wasn't right. So we flew to Phoenix that night and stayed with Pontanathan and his wife that we had met at the retreat. Then we got to rent a car and we drove to Sedona. And Pons called me and gave me the name of a man that does tracking, because I said, we need a tracker. We have to, I mean, there's all these hills everywhere in the desert. And so he gave me the name of this man. And I called him and he said, where are you? I told him, and he said, I said, we'll be at the hotel in about 20 minutes. He says, I'll be there waiting for you. And there's so many things that happened in Sedona that were miracles, and Swami's hand in it. So anyway, he volunteered. Turned out, I said, well, how much do you charge? He said, I'm not going to charge you anything. I said, wow, that's great. Thank you so much. So he got some people together and started looking, because there's hills and trails and all this sort of stuff. And I had made flyers, put them up in a few stores. The Ponchanathans organized the Phoenix devotees, and they came the following day. And there was about 20 some of them in their straw hats because of the sun and stuff. And the guide who had come to help us look, he said, this is a side note, he said, he stood there while we were giving directions and stuff. He said, I've never been with a group that was organized that sat so quietly, didn't say a word, got up and went and did what they were supposed to do. I said, well, this is why this is a side devotee for you. He had had some vibhuti a few years before, so he wasn't totally unfamiliar. Some went put up posters in the businesses all over, and others went up a path and handed out them all sorts of. Altogether, we gave out about 500, but nothing that didn't lead to results. And
usually you already do a lot of service at that point as well. So being on the receiving end of these Sai devotee volunteers, so helping you search for your son, must have been a miracle in itself, right?
Well, it was, but it was also extremely humbling to be on the receiving end of it. I'd never been on the receiving end of it before.
Yeah.
And my heart was so touched by people stopping their routine on the weekend and coming. And even about 10 of them came back the next day on Sunday. In the meantime, the TV stations got wind of it, And Michael and I were interviewed for the 5 o'clock and the 10 o'clock news about this, this boy that was lost. And, so, I mean, it was all Swami. It was just all Swami. So ultimately he wasn't there. So we ended up going home. I found out later from him that he had lost his keys up in the hills. He went up to spend the night in it, and it got so cold, and he lost his keys, so he couldn't go get his jacket and or anything else. And so he started hitchhiking, and he didn't have any water. And eventually, a Native American couple picked him up, and he said, Mom, he said, I don't know why I had no water, and yet when they picked me up, I still had saliva in my mouth. But I knew that was just, again, that was Swami's grace, keeping him hydrated enough that he just wouldn't go off the road and disappear. He hitchhiked across to LA, and then made his way to Santa Monica. We found him about 3 weeks later. Again, this was a Swami miracle. I think Swami was doing this for me to help alleviate my anxiety. My husband and son flew out to Santa Monica, which is on the weekends is crazy. There's so many people, tourists, and this was 4th of July weekend. So the beaches were packed, the streets were packed, and my husband went home to his sister's house just to rest, and after they'd been looking on the beach for a while. And Matt, my other son, took a hotel room, and he was going to sleep for about 3 hours because he'd not come in that day on the red eye. And he said, I only could sleep, I rested about an hour, and then I had this urge, I had to get up and go look for Tim. So he walked out of the hotel, turned right, and turned right again, and there was Tim walking towards him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Swami. And so they went to his aunt's house, and I got pictures, and I got to talk to him. That's how I found out he lost his keys and couldn't get back into the car, and he'd gotten a ride and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, that was just the beginning of the whole experience. And so we went out to see him and made a date to rendezvous, and he had no desire to come home. He was perfectly happy. He's walking around barefoot, and he looked peaceful and happy. So no getting him to come back to Maryland. And but I was much relieved that he wouldn't take any money from me. Actually, he never took money. So he had a telephone, and he still has a telephone, and I occasionally text him. Then Christmas came around, about November came around that year, and my husband Michael contacted me and said, "Why don't you come home for Christmas, and we'll buy you a round trip ticket. You can go back." And he did, and we had a wonderful time. But when he left, though, he said to me, "Mom, when I go back, I think I'm going to go into silence." And I said, "Well, I hope that doesn't mean me. You're not going to talk to me." He didn't answer me, and I waited about a week, and I tried texting him. His phone was disconnected, so no more phone. Then it was a matter of, over the years, just going out to first to Santa Monica and then to Malibu to find him. Now Malibu is 27 miles long, but every time we'd find him.
So what you're saying is he went into silence out of choice.
Yes.
So in a way, he is being a renunciate.
Yes, that's
right.
exactly.
So if you were in the East, people go into the mountains and tend to, be one with nature and go silent and go inwards. He's actually he's doing that, but in the West Coast.
Right. That's exactly right.
Right. And as a mother, how did you feel? I mean, I know he stopped answering phone calls or actually went into silence. And then you just mentioned that every time you go and see him, though, you actually find him. Swami's grace that he actually, you're able to find him in that large area. So, yeah, please continue. How did you feel about that?
Well, it certainly wasn't my choice. And of course, I worried about the physical aspect of him. Was how is he going to eat? And what happens if he gets sick? That sort of thing. But and he walked all the time, just constantly walked, or he'd be down by the beach. But I mean, I just worried about him. I was just worried. Sometimes I'd be just incapacitated. I'd be so worried about him. Until one day, I had the revelation that I don't need to worry about him. He's not my son anymore. I mean, he'll always be the son of my body, but he's an adult, and it's Swami's responsibility to take care of him, not mine. And the phrase "surrender, trust, and accept" came to my mind, and I thought, well, that's really what I have to do. And we've always been involved with feeding the homeless here, or the unhoused, and whether we were in DC or now we're in Richmond. And I thought, well, if I can feed somebody else's child, I want to do that. Tim doesn't want any help, so I'm not going to help him. Maybe somebody will help him, but and I'm going to help who I can. And we increased our save up in that regard. And I mean, it's just been a journey up and down and up and down. But Swami has been so gracious and so loving that there was only one time I didn't find him, when we went to California to look for him. And the last time, which was last May, we went, and then we were driving, just entering Malibu, and we had come to a light. Michael happened to glance over to the left, and there was Tim sitting on a bench, a bus bench. So we didn't even have to drive into Malibu, and we found him. So, and yeah, he really kept to not talking. He was very serious about that, and that went on for quite a few years. He's now talking, but for that, for a long time, he didn't talk. I could talk to him, but he wouldn't respond. Aside from Swami, well, of course, Swami's number one, but Tim has been my biggest teacher. Yes. Going through this surrender, trust, and accept. He really has been my biggest teacher.
I realized about halfway through this process, meaning about 4 to 5 years as of now, that do I trust Swami or do I not trust Swami? If I trust Swami, then he's in charge, and I don't have to do anything, but I can pray for him, Tim, but Swami's in charge, and it's Swami's child. He'll take care of Tim. That's why I'm able to focus on helping other people, and I've had such peace and calm has come over me from doing that. And that's the trust part of the surrender, trust, and accept. I trust Swami. I can't just sort of trust him. That's like being a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. Well, I either trust him or I don't trust him. And so I trust Swami that he has Tim's best intentions in mind, as it were. I did want to say that because I think it's really important, having learned that lesson quite a while ago, that I trust Swami.
Thank you so much. There are many areas in which we can spend time contemplating on. And one of those is the fact that your son was at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Retreat in the Poconos Mountains, and he had that profound sense of calling when he was in Swami's room. It goes to show that you really don't have to be in physical presence with Swami in order to have those kind of deep connections to divinity. And the other thing is how the Sai devotees came together to search for your son, the selfless service that they provided has touched you deeply, and also is a powerful message for all of us to take on, that the support that comes in when there's true need. Finally, your growth of detachment, our heartfelt gratitude to you for being here and sharing the story.
Thank you for asking me.
Dear listeners, thank you for joining Sai Soul 100 with Susan Sullivan. I am Prabha Swaminathan. Until next time, Jai Sairam.